Skies over southern Greece turned orange as dust clouds blew in from North Africa. Strong winds carried the dust from the Sahara Desert. It covered Athens' landmarks. It gave the Greek capital a Martian-like filter in the last hours of daylight. The skies are predicted to clear tomorrow as winds shift and temperatures drop.
This is the Rebel Call Channel. Welcome to today's show. Acropolis now is the headline. Instead, of course, of apocalypse now, but what we're seeing are more and more skies around the earth that are turning orange. And now this is happening over in Greece. Last year, you may remember that it happened in North America. Specifically, it was lingering over New York City, and they were telling all of us that this was because somehow the winds from Canada and their wildfires were blowing all the way down to New York. First of all, nobody knows how in the world at the time when that happened. I was covering how the wind suddenly goes from north to south, yet alone the fact that how come in the history of humanity, whenever there's been wildfires before, we've never seen something like this. And of course, what I covered then, I'll show you now, because while this story is out there circulating and they're telling you that it's just dust from the Sahara Desert, when this occurred in New York, National Geographic, the mainstream media, were releasing articles saying that orange skies are the future, that we need to prepare ourselves. We need to get used to this orange sky. And of course, they want us to get used to the orange sky because they're going to create an orange sky. They are going to be shielding the sun. And that's what this plan has been about all along, convincing you that climate change is real so that they can manipulate sunlight. And then when you hear them talking about things like Bill Gates saying that, hey, we want to block out the sun. We want to cover it up, kind of like Mr. Burns on The Simpsons when I covered that many times over, where Mr. Burns' character was talking about blocking out the sun, and people said that's really a strange thing for a cartoon to talk about. And then, of course, we see all these billionaires, and you see article after article after article about billionaires like Jeff Bezos and Bill Gates wanting to block out the sun. Of course, this has everything to do with your health and not benefiting your health. No, quite the opposite, because humans depend on natural sunlight for good health and also for this thing called farming, which they don't want you to be able to do anymore. And of course, even last year when I covered the situation in New York with the orange skies, I talked about a moment to consider the food system collapse. We had mainstream media articles out there talking about, oh man, we better be careful. The food system might, eventually go down if we continue to see wildfires that are causing the sun to not be able to emit rays. And we're seeing just black haze mixed with the sun, which is just pretty much causing what looks like an orange sky. So you're going to hear fake stories like this over and over and over again. Not saying that it's fake that there isn't an orange sky in Greece, because clearly there is. I mean, it's all over the place that people are talking about it. But the reasoning they continue to give you is nothing more than bullcrap. This one says that it's because of winds carrying from the Sahara Desert are giving the atmosphere, the Greek capital of Greece, a very orange sky. Skies over southern Greece turned an orange hue on Tuesday as dust clouds blown across the Mediterranean Sea from North Africa engulfed the Acropolis and other Athens landmarks. Strong southerly winds carried the dust from the Sahara Desert, giving the atmosphere of the Greek capital a Martian-like filter in the last hours of daylight, and it has lingered into today. The skies are predicted to clear later in the day as winds shift and move the dust, with temperatures dipping. On Tuesday, the daily high in parts of the southern island of Crete topped 86 degrees Fahrenheit and 70 degrees Fahrenheit higher than what was registered in much of northern Greece. The strong southerly winds over the last few days have also fanned unseasonal early wildfires in the country's south. The fire service said Tuesday that a total of 25 wildfires broke out across the country in the past 24 hours. 3 people were arrested on the agency resort island of Paros on suspicion of accidentally starting a scrub blaze on Monday, it added. Right? And how many times have we heard this now? We just heard it in Chile with the wildfires, which was a clear direct energy weapon. We saw in Maui, they shrugged their shoulders. They said it was climate change. And then, of course, when they didn't sound the alarm and all these kids went missing, people got suspicious. And instead of even trying to spin the story, they just decided to quietly sweep it under the rug and never, ever bring attention to it again, because we don't hear the mainstream media ever even talking about Maui. They're literally pretending like it didn't happen, right? But what people need to do is use their minds. They need to start seeing articles like the ones that came out last year talking about how we need to prepare for the future. And the future is going to consist of orange skies. Instead of saying, why are the skies going to be orange in the future? They go, well, because there's going to be more and more wildfires. And you say, well, are you telling us these wildfires are from climate change? They're saying, yes, we're telling you it's from climate change, but also a lot of mysterious people are just accidentally starting forest fires all over the place, right? In Chile, just a bunch of people decided they wanted to set these massive fires for no reason whatsoever, and then spend the next 25 years in prison because they thought it was exciting to light a fire in the woods that would really, just create an orange haze in the sky, destroy some homes of people they don't even know. They continue to make these stories up and then condition you on the back end. And that's what these stories are in the back end, telling you that you need to prep for life with an orange sky, telling you that this is the new norm, okay? And it's all going to be blamed on the boogeyman of climate change. And if you don't buy the story, if you don't believe, well, wait a minute, why would climate change be making the sky orange? Well, they'll just come out and tell you, well, the fire was started by some arsonists who decided to just start a fire. Because that sounds a little bit more believable to some. But they would never tell you, of course, or mention the fact that the government is actually starting these fires using direct energy weapons, because they don't want you to be aware of why they have all these direct energy weapons. They tell us that they have these, right? It's not a conspiracy that the government has direct energy weapons. If you think it's a conspiracy, you could go look at the government themselves in whatever country and talk about it, brag about it. UK is developing theirs, already developed. America rolls out all this stuff where they're talking about how we have direct energy weapon systems, right? And oh man, we're going to be able to stop an enemy missile from flying in, etc. They tell you it's for those purposes. And that's it. Trillions of dollars to, block a missile from another country. Then, of course, when a missile comes from another country, wink, wink, it'll conveniently, the direct energy weapon will miss it, I'm sure, and hit the target that it has, indicated and planned on hitting. And they'll just go, oops, we missed it. And everyone will still believe it because they'll believe whatever they're told. At this point, they will believe whatever they're told. The fact that people still believe the climate agenda is real shows you how much of a grip they have over the minds of the youth. Now, they also have a massive grip over the minds of the communist foot soldiers known as Democrats. Now, most conservatives don't believe in the climate agenda, so it'll be very interesting to see how when everyone gets divided, how they're going to manipulate them into accepting some of these carbon rules, or if they're just going to wait it out and just wipe them out with a direct energy weapon, which is highly likely. So the story out of Greece, again, it's another one of these stories that they try to brush off. The sky is orange. Hey, the sky's orange in New York. Oh yeah? How long? What's going on? The sky's orange in New York because a fire 2,000 miles away blew down here. And nobody goes, wait a minute. Haven't there been fires before in Canada? Yeah, there have. Okay. So why all of a sudden is the sky orange in New York? And then how do we correlate this with all these stories we hear about the government, the White House themselves, trying to figure out how to block out the sun? Can we correlate the? Oh, no, you can't correlate the two. Why can't you correlate the two? Why can't you assume the obvious here, that the government is sabotaging everything? They're sabotaging our air quality. They're sabotaging the ability to be able to grow food on your own. They're clearly poisoning the water supply as well. All these train derailments that keep happening. Everyone's like, oh, train derailment, that's normal. And then they come on TV, they try to tell you, well, this is why there's train derailments. As we've evolved so much as technology's evolved, humans have evolved. That's what they tell us, even though it's quite the opposite as far as humans evolving. They've completely devolved. They're going, like I've talked about with psychology, adults behaving like children. In basic psychology, any book you read on psychology, that's them reverting. They're going back to childhood tendencies because they can't face the stress or the confrontation. They don't want to confront any of the stuff going on in reality in their real lives, right? So humans are actually going backwards because they're behaving like children, which of course is what makes them believe these stories. If you're thinking like a child and you could be manipulated like a child when you're an adult, well, then the government is going to be able to convince you of things like this and then tell you like, oh yeah, it's just a wildfire. because all of a sudden wildfires make, look, no one's going to pretend like if there's a wildfire that it's not going to have an effect in the actual sky. But for entire cities like New York and Greece, okay, or countries, I should say, in Greece, being completely under an orange haze, and then them saying that this is the new normal. This isn't them saying, wow, that's a freakish sight that we'll never see again, right? When that happened in New York, if the articles that came out were like, hey, this is really strange, take a picture because you probably won't ever see it again. What were the articles out there saying? Prepare yourself for the future is what they were saying. Prepare yourself, right? This is the new future. Orange skies are the new future. And this is a moment that we need to consider our food system collapse. Because when you start using common sense and you say, well, the sun is blocked, right? And you start thinking about how the government say they want to block the sun, then you start thinking about the food supply chain, right? Will we be able to grow food? And the answer is no. But don't worry, because the way problem, reaction, solution works is that the government's waiting to feed us. Now, it's not going to be real food, of course. This is going to be all plant-based stuff that they grew in a little jar in a little chemistry lab that you think is going to be beneficial to you. And of course, it's just going to make you weaker and sicker, but you're going to need it, right? You're going to need it. So we're going to continue to allow the government to do these things. Not to mention the fact that all of these fires, all of these weather events that are occurring are being started by the government. So this is what we have to make clear to people out there, because the youth out there, a lot of them hear us talking about it, and the media wants to make it sound like we're climate deniers, right? Oh, they're climate deniers. They don't believe climate change is real. Well, let's make this clear. The narrative you're giving on climate change being real is completely fake. But what you're doing is you're manipulating the weather with geoengineering. You're creating fires all over the place with direct energy weapons. You're using HARP and the weaponized weather machines that you have to create hurricanes and tornadoes. Thus, you're creating an illusion in people's mind that this climate change thing you speak of is real. But if we took the whole narrative away that, oh, the ocean's warming and this is happening because of carbon emissions, then people would start going, all right, yeah, there is something weird going on with the climate. There is something weird going on with the fact that we barely see the sun anymore because the sky is constantly covered in a gray blanket that people think are real clouds. And you go, wait a minute. Okay, maybe there is something to climate change. But what there is, the something to it, is the fact that you're doing it. Because when you realize what they want to get out of this, what the benefits of this are, then you start saying, wow, this sounds like the Roman Empire or any other crazy regime, tyrannical regime that's existed in the past. Because they'll be able to control the people. If they could control and manipulate the weather, right? They aren't going to be able, nobody's going to hold them accountable for doing it. And they're going to shrug their shoulders and laugh and say you're a conspiracy theorist if you believe it. But they'll never address, that's the thing. They'll say that there's climate deniers. And they'll go, they don't believe it's not. And people will go, well, I clearly see that there's, that it's a lot hotter or it's this or it's that. So those people need to understand that the government has the ability to manipulate the weather. Okay, I've covered it 1 million times. I've been removed 1 million times for talking about it. We can go back to speeches from John F. Kennedy talking about the rush to find and figure out and have control of the weather for a country to be able to do that and use it as a weapon of war. And that's what's happened. Just the weapon of war that they all have, they're using on the citizens. They're not using it. They're not sending a tsunami, okay, over to Afghanistan. They don't want, you know what I mean? I mean, they can't literally, but all right, let's use another weaponized weather tactic. They're not going to cloud seed and try to flood out, the boogeyman in the cave over in Afghanistan. Okay, they're not going after Al-Qaeda with weaponized weather. They're going after you with weaponized weather. They're going after civilians, which is why if you didn't see the video I did on FEMA, go watch it. Very simple video. The government's talking, and people out there are like, I don't understand why they're doing this. The government's using your tax money to buy out people's homes who have been destroyed in floods or are threatened to be destroyed in floods. Okay? Now, they only would know that their home is threatened to be destroyed in a flood if the government tells them, oh, you're in a flood zone. Well, how do they know? Oh, you're in a flood zone because all of a sudden you're in a flood zone. Well, why would you have made houses here in the first place if it was a flood zone? Well, now it's suddenly a flood zone. Oh, now it's suddenly a flood zone. Okay. Why is that? Well, because scientists tell us this. Oh, okay. So we're going to pay for you to move from this spot. And then we're not going to rebuild on the land because we want it. And we're going to use the taxpayers' money to buy your land up. Right? This is what we see them doing. They're weaponizing weather on the civilians to get you to move out of places you are, to either get you into a FEMA camp, okay, by destroying your home. And if they can't destroy your home and get you into a FEMA camp, they'll buy out your land with our tax money, which makes 0 sense. But to people out there who are completely brain dead and dumbed down, they are too afraid to believe that the government is this wicked. So they'll believe the narrative they're fed because it's more comfortable for them, right? I've been using the example of like being in an abusive relationship, right? We've all known people who have been in them, or you've seen stories, or you've seen crime shows, etc., right? And everybody goes, why don't they leave the relationship, right? Everybody says that. How could these people do it? How could somebody be so dumb to get in the car with Ted Bundy? Well, they didn't know he was a serial killer, so they got in the car with him because he was charming, right? Or these people who are in relationships with somebody who's an abuser, they stay in the relationship, right? We always see that. And people are like, why are you in it? The friends warn. We hear the stories, right? The friends are like, get out, he's a bad person. And they go, no, he's not. It's just, you don't see the other side of him. You don't see the good in him. And that's exactly what's going on now. An abusive government. We have people out there who are just so dedicated to their party because they've been trained to be communist soldiers. They've been shamed into, don't you dare question the party. Don't you dare question any of the ideologies the party has. You go along with everyone. If you're a Democrat, it means you support everything. That means even if we're letting criminals in at the border who are going to come and rob your home at gunpoint, you better be okay with it. And they are. And they are. Because they don't want to realize that they're in bed with a criminal. They're in bed with a corrupt, abusive government. And the conservatives are as well, because Donald Trump is the same exact thing. He's just marketed in a different way. When you continue to victimize him, these people start to support him more and more and more, and he says all the things that tickle their ears. But that's exactly what this equates to, right? These people don't want to believe that the government is doing this stuff, but they tell us every day. They tell us about the technology, they tell us about all the billionaires wanting to block the sun, and people just go, nah, I don't know what that means. It's too much for me to think about, right? Well, think about what the benefits of blocking the sun would be for them. Not you, because obviously if you're smart, you'd say, well, there's nothing good that comes out of that. I can't go to the beach anymore, right? I can't, And of course, that's just the common person's thought. Like, if the sun's not out, how am I going to lay out and get a tan and look good for my TikTok videos? Well, let's think about the reality of it. How beneficial the sun is to your health, right? How beneficial the sun is to growing food. These are things that they've always dreamed of controlling. And now they're getting closer and closer to doing it. No empire has been able to do these types of things before because of the technology they have and because of the commitment that these communist parties have to their party. They're moving forward with this instead of just flat out saying, no human being on earth, as civilians of the earth, no human being on earth should ever have the right to block the sun. And if you think that you're going to block the sun, we don't care what you claim science says. We're going to arrest you for life. And that'll be a nice punishment. Instead, maybe we'll take you out to the town square and we'll do it the old country way, the old fashioned way, and we'll make an example of you. That way, if anybody else thinks that they're going to try to pull this crap on us and they're going to try to manipulate our lives, well, this is what their fate's going to be. That's the way it should be handled. That's how these people should be handled. That's how they should have been handled after the outbreak. But that's not the way it's going to go, unfortunately. But what we need to do is break people free. And a way to break them free is articles like that, those that I showed you in this video. Orange skies are the future. Instead of saying, hey, this is weird, they're telling you that this is going to be the new normal. And the more time goes by, the more desensitized you become. The more you go, oh, yeah, there was a fire in Timbuktu, and now New York City is orange skies, right? I mean, literally a fire in Canada, and New York City was orange, and people believe it. Here, what's the story here? Oh, the story here is that strong winds came from the Sahara and got all the way to Greece. So Greece is under orange skies, right? Oh, really? Oh, okay, that makes no sense. What are they going to tell us next? That there's a wildfire in Australia and the United States is under a cover of orange and people out there are going to believe it? Probably. So the more you see strange weather like this and the more you see no pushback, no questioning of it, that's because these people are conditioned into believing that every weather anomaly, whether they're doing simulations of blocking the sun or they're just wiping places out with tornadoes and hurricanes and tsunamis or completely obliterating countries with earthquakes, these people will just go climate change. They've been trained to do it, and we know it's working because we see how people are responding to stuff like this. It's pretty incredible. I thank everybody for being here. I hope you're all doing well. God bless you as always and your families.